welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're doing a tutorial on the best makeup colors you should use to make your green and blue eyes pop. So a lot of the colors that I like to use or am going to be using are browns and purples. These I feel like really help make my eyes pop because they are opposite of the color wheel from green and blue. So we're using more kind of like deep, rich colors to contrast with that brighter blue-green color. So first, I'm just gonna pin my little slut strands back, as what people like to refer them to. And I always like to start off with skin prep first whenever I do any makeup. So for primers, I'm using the Danessa Myricks Blurring Balm. This one is super great if you have any oil or texture, because one, it prevents oil from mixing in with my foundations. And if you have any big pores, they just go bye-bye. So I really have been loving using this one lately. And I really like to focus it on my cheeks and my nose because that's where I get a lot of my open pores. So starting off my eyebrows first, I'm gonna use the Rare Beauty Eyebrow Gel and I'm just gonna fluff them up a little bit. I don't really do too much to my brows just because I already have a super thick brows and I don't want them to be any thicker. I always love using an eyeshadow primer just to really get that eyeshadow to stick on. So I'm using the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer for today. I've actually just been using this ever since I was 16 and I just keep buying it. So this is definitely one of my staples in my makeup routine. And I just like to rub that all in, press that in. And then really to get that eyeshadow to pop, I love lining the lids with the concealer. This is the NARS Pot Concealer. I like this one because it's super full coverage and matte, so it really gives the eyeshadow something to stick on as well. And I just like to line my whole lid with that and carve out the bottom of my eyebrow. That's also how I can change the shape of my eyebrow a little bit. Then taking a damp beauty blender, I'll just blend out that concealer just so it's all nice and blended. This also helps prevent the eyeshadow from sticking unevenly. For eyeshadow, I wanted to use like a really rich deep brown. I'm using the new Danessa Myricks Lightwork palette. I haven't touched this yet, so I'm super excited to also be using this. This was a Christmas present and I'm really surprised I haven't used it yet. I'm just gonna take kind of a big fluffy brush like this, just taking it into this really not brown, but kind of like a tan shade. This is gonna be my transition shade. So I'm just gonna put that all into my crease just to give some color to my eye. I'm just gonna blend this all on the upper part of my crease. Just really getting that all over my eye. Now I'm gonna take kind of like a smaller, still fluffy brush. I'm gonna go in with this super warm dark brown shade. And I'm gonna put that in the same place where I did that first shade, just a little bit lower. So more on this outer corner right here, keeping that localized into the crease, but not so much blending it out like all the way up to the brow bone how I was before. I want to keep eye makeup super simple, so I'm just going to do those two colors, and then now I'm going to go in with the shimmer. I'm going to go in with this kind of like purpley pink shimmer on a flat brush, and then I'm just going to pack that all onto my lid. It gives a nice purpley pink pop, but I also like shimmers, so it gives me my glitter. I don't want to do too much with this eye makeup look, but I do want a thicker lash line, so I'm going to take a brown felt tip liner. This one's from Kat Von D, probably one of my favorites, and I'm just gonna line my lash line with this. Super easy. And then I kind of like to flick it out just a little bit, not a ton because I am not super skilled with a wing liner yet, but I just like to have a little bit more of an uplift because my eye is kind of more downturned. And then I really like to drag it all the way into that inner corner. I'll just take my finger and I'll kind of go like that. When the product's still wet, and that makes it easier for me to flick out. Now this is totally optional. I love a good fake lash. I feel like it just opens up my eye way more, especially if I'm using this makeup look as kind of like more of a date night type look. So I definitely recommend a false lash, but you by no means need to put a false lash. This would work just well with mascara as well. I'm just gonna pinch that together, make sure it's attached to my eyelid. Once I got those on, then I kind of like to curl them a little bit, not a lot, just enough to kind of blend them all together. And then to blend those all together, I'm just gonna use some mascara. This one is from Maybelline. It's the Sky High Mascara, probably one of my favorite mascaras out there. So now what I do like to do as well, I hate this white line that I have underneath my eyes. So I love taking a gel liner. This one's from Urban Decay. This is in the color Demolition, and I like to just go over my waterline with it. I love how it blacks out my eye without it being too harsh like a black eyeliner would, so that's why I like using brown. Eye makeup done. Now we're gonna move on to face. This is probably the most important part just because I wanted to keep eye makeup super nice and natural. Face is really what I wanted to focus on. We already did skin prep, and I like to do skin prep first to give my skin time to kind of absorb the product. Now we're going in foundation. I'm gonna be using these two because I really want more of a super hydrated look, but this foundation is a little bit too light for me, so I'm gonna mix it with this Dior Forever Glow. I like to apply it with a brush first, and then I'll go in over with the Beauty Blender. I find that this helps give me more coverage, and then when I go over with the Beauty Blender, it's just more natural looking. But this foundation is more on the lighter coverage side, so I'm not expecting to get like a super mattified full coverage out of this. I kind of like to do not as much on my forehead just because I'm gonna put bronzer up here, so I really just have no point in putting foundation up there. I mainly am focusing on my cheeks and where I have a lot of pigmentation. I really want to spend a good amount of time blending out where my nose is and all the creases, because that's what people are gonna notice first if you have cakey foundation. Your nose. I'm gonna go back in with my NARS Pot Concealer. I really like using this to cover up the more stubborn pimples that did not want to be covered up. So that's a lot of pigmentation on my cheeks and my chin, my jaw. But I'm not gonna put this underneath my eyes. I've noticed that my eyes are a little bit more dry, and I also like to save concealer for after my blush and contour. I usually like to let that dry down for a minute or two, and I'm not gonna blend it out with the Beauty Blender because then it's just gonna suck up all the product. I'm actually gonna use a foundation brush and just kind of tap that in because I want this to have as much coverage as possible. I'm gonna move on to my bronzer. For bronzers, I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury Contour Wand in the color Fair. I actually like to kind of take it on the back of my hand first and kind of work it into my brush and then put it onto my face. When I'm in a rush, I will just dot it on my face, but I feel like doing it this way just helps blend out the product a little bit better and I get a more seamless result. With my contour, I kind of like to make a little 3. So I'm gonna go up across my forehead, down on my cheek, and then I like to go underneath my jaw and then bring it down my neck because I want to be a little bit more tan than I actually am. See, the product just dries so fast, so I don't want to have to worry about blending those little dots out on my face. And I just like to do a little bit on my nose just to bring some color back into my nose. For blushes, I wanted to mix the Huda Beauty in Black Cherry and then the Rare Beauty Illuminizer in the color Mesmerize because I saw this girl do this trend once and I fell in love with it. So I keep doing it. And I like to place this just right above where that contour is. I'll do a little bit on my nose. Now, I'm not a super huge blush fan, so I'm actually gonna take my Beauty Blender and blend that out because this will kind of pick up more product. And so this kind of helps me so I don't get freaked out by how much blush is on my face because I am naturally very pink and I just spent the last 2 minutes canceling out the pink. So I don't wanna bring that pink back even worse. For my under eyes, they are a little bit more dry than the rest of my face for some reason. So I do love going in with more of a hydrating concealer. This one's from Kosas. Super great concealer. I really do love this concealer. Do a little bit on my chin and kind of like on my forehead just to add some brightness. Again, I kind of like to let that dry down for a little bit. And then taking my Beauty Blender, we're gonna blend that out. I like doing it this way because I feel like it also mellows down that blush. It just all blends in together. So after I got all my cream products, now I'm gonna move on to my powders. But I always like to set my face first. So I'm using my Huda Beauty today. How I like to do setting powders is I like to take a powder puff, load that powder puff all up with product. Like, don't be scared. I kind of like to buff it out on the back of my hand just so it's evenly distributed, and then pack that into my under eye or anywhere that I get oily or creasy. I get a really deep smile line right here, so I'm gonna really load up powder in there. And then I also kind of like to nose contour with this. So I'm just gonna drag that down my nose. Really keep that under eye nice and bright. Since I am super oily, I would rather overset my face because I know that oil is gonna come through. And this just helps keep everything together. I do notice that after I set my face, I lose a little bit of color. So now I'm gonna go in with powder blush and bronzers. With bronzer, I'm using the Giorgio Armani bronzer. This one actually has been a really good favorite of mine. And I thought I was not gonna like it at first because it does run a little bit warm and it's very pigmented, so you kind of have to be a little bit careful because it's getting so much warmer out, and I really am manifesting summer to come because I'm done with sweaters and being cold and constantly turning up the heat. I'd rather be melting. Okay, if you're like me and you went a little overboard on this side, take your foundation brush, blend that out. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. For blush, I'm using this Kosas blush in the color Dare. This came actually in a gift set. I don't know if they actually sell this one on its own, but I just like that it was kind of like a dark berry color like the Huda Beauty. So I thought it would be a good addition for a purple blush, just to add in some color. You need to find the right balance between blush and bronzer. Bronzer's too crazy, you're gonna look crazy. Blush is too crazy, you're gonna look crazy too. I'm gonna go in with a little bit more highlighter, taking my Dior Universal Glow palette. I'm just gonna kind of swirl all of that together. I like to do a little bit on the tippy of my nose and kind of down the center, and then up on the tippy tops of my cheekbones, kind of going into my brow bone too. Now I did want to finish up with a little bit like on my bottom lash line. So I'm just gonna take that same eyeliner Demolition that we had before. I'm just gonna do a little line, not in my waterline, but close enough to my lash line, because this just helps open up my eye a little bit more. And I'm gonna take a teeny tiny little brush like this, some of that tan eyeshadow we used on the first layer of our eyeshadow, and just buff that out. You get some in your eye, it's okay, just keep blinking. And I kind of like to stop it right before I get to the inner corner because I know I'm gonna drag that product when I buff it out, and I don't want it to get all like too condensed. Now all that's left is lips. I'm not a super big lipstick person, so I love just using a lip liner and a lip gloss. This has been my favorite lip combo ever. I cannot stop using it and I can't put it down. It's Makeup by Mario's color Travis with Rare Beauty's lip gloss in the shade Glimmer. Like, these two are just the perfect pinky brown nude. It's great for fall, winter, summer. It's just perfect. And then I like to overline my Cupid's bow and my lower lip just to make my lips look a little bit bigger than they actually are. I really spent a long time on my lips just because I really want that to be perfect. And we're going in with some lip gloss. See? Just such a perfect, pretty color. First, setting sprays I like to use too. I like to use more of a hydrating one because I live in the desert and it's super dry here and makeup is already naturally drying. So I'm going in with the One Size Powder Melt. Just to hydrate my skin a little bit and to keep everything nice and melted together. And then if you're like me, if you're oily, have texture, and you just need something to like set your makeup and not have it go anywhere, Danessa Myricks Liquid Blurring Balm. Let me just say, if she ever gets rid of this, I'm gonna throw hands. Because backstory with the spray, I had a little bit of a mental breakdown. I had a little bit of a minty beat. My eye makeup came off. My face makeup did not. It did not budge. So this stuff saves your breakdowns. But ta-da! That is my favorite makeup routine that I love doing it to make your blue or green eyes pop. And it's also super easy too. If you have brown eyes, you can easily do this too. But for my blue green-eyed baddies, this is the makeup routine that you're looking for. It's really good for date nights, just everyday look. You can also bring it down as far as like foundation goes if you don't want a lot of it. This is just a super easy standard routine that helps make your eyes pop. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe this video and comment down below what makeup routine you'd like to see next. Bye!